Hello everyone and welcome to another Thoth video. Now I know the last couple of videos have been heavily focused on the major arcana and there's a reason. I feel like this deck is so complex that I like to just, let's deal with one thing and then we'll go to another. And some of them, like in the very beginning of my Thoth series, I did all kinds of both major and minor arcana cards. But for the last couple of episodes of this series, I have been actually studying heavily with the majors. Now, I know that this deck has a whole bunch of systems like Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. I mean, there's just so much jam-packed into here that the topic today could be convoluted, okay? Now, as you can see from the title, it's all about the Fool's Journey. Now, I do believe, in terms of tarot, okay, the Fool's Journey is what it was meant for, okay? The 21 doors, whatever you want to call it. The Fool has to go through life and he meets or encounters these beings. That's my view. I feel like the way the majors in most of the the oldest tarot decks around, I believe that that's what the system is for. That's why he's zero. Because he is you or whoever is going on the journey, right? And I feel like as a journey, it just makes the most sense. Now, for those of you who may not know what the Fool's Journey is or doesn't study the tarot that way, basically the Fool's Journey is a metaphor for the journey of life. And in the case of the tarot cards, major arcana, the Fool is the one taking the journey as the number 0. Like I said, in the Thoth deck, it's all about, you have to kind of tie in the Fool's Journey. What's the main goal, right? Now, for the Rider-Waite deck, you could say that the goal is, think of the Judgment card, the Rapture, right? But if you look at all tarot decks across all the systems, in my opinion, the Fool's Journey's main goal, or the Fool's main goal, is to get to whatever divine is for him. So whatever spiritual path you are on, the querent is on, whoever, their main goal is to get closer to whoever the divine is for him or her. And the Thoth deck is no different. Especially when we're talking about the systems that includes like Kabbalah, the goal there is enlightenment, is to get to Keter, okay? Is to get to the light that's beyond Keter. If you think of Hinduism, and I've watched a couple of documentaries recently that talk about the river that Hindus take the deceased and burn the bodies on the bank of the river. And it's a celebration of life, right? And they believe in reincarnation and karma, right? So if you think of it in terms of that way, the goal isn't to reincarnate. That means that you've done something on the journey that needs to be redone, rethought about, right? And the goal is to get and be just like the divine. And I think across all cultures, all religions, that's the goal. Is to be equal to whoever the Godhead is to you. And that's just my opinion across all pantheons and spiritual paths and religions in general. That's purely the main goal. They all come about it in a different way. Now, let's step back from religion a second because I didn't want to ramble about that. But I didn't want this to be a particularly long video either. I just wanted to be kind of quick. And we're going to go 7 cards at a time because I feel like if you read Rachel Pollack's tarot books like 78 Degrees of Wisdom, she maps out the tarot cards 7 by 7 by 7. Okay? And it's a great way to look at the system of the major arcana. Because if this is one path, I guess, and then the Fool starts back over down here and goes on another path, right? It's not really 3 separate paths. It's just you encounter pretty much the same type of relevance in this first line than you do in the other 2. And we'll get to that. So let's get started. Okay. Now, as I said, these first 7, the relevance here would probably be what? Now, in the Thoth deck, and if you've watched my other 2 videos, the pairings and the vital triads, you know that all 6 of these is pretty much divine. They're representatives of the divine in some form or the other. Okay? Now, the Fool's Journey has each card represent something. And I'm going to try to tie in that with the Thoth deck. Try. It might work out the way all tarot decks do. So we'll see. The Magician. Okay? He's gathering up his tools. All of his skills that he needs. The Fool has to gather up all of his tools. Right? Now, let's say in more traditional Rider-Waite decks, this could be a street magician, an illusionist, or like the Rider-Waite, it's just someone on their altar and he happens to have all 4 of the tools, the main tools that he uses and will have to use in life. But with this, there's so much symbolism here because Hermes, or Mercury, whoever you want to call him, he's standing on this divine egg, okay? Now, to me, this egg is a light, right? Like source. And he's standing on source. And then that is how he's figuring out, that's why it's blooming out like this. He's figuring out all these tools. And the tools are going to come from the source. So, in terms of that, that's like within yourself, you already have all your tools, right? And they kind of float here outside of his head for him to just grab when he needs. And that's what we all have to do. That's the first thing you have to do, is you have to realize what your skills are. That's it. Just realizing that you have some skills, you have something the things that you're good at, right? The things internally that you can just access. You just figuring out what they are in this card. Then we move on to the High Priestess. Now, we have to, in the Fool's Journey, we have to look back and non-animate these, non-personalize these. These are beings, yes, but they're not actually beings. So when they encounter this is and this High Priestess, for example, wouldn't actually be a High Priestess sitting on a throne. Okay? This was just building your intuition muscle. She's the embodiment of the intuition muscle itself. So after you've gathered the tools, you have to know how to utilize them. And you do that by building the muscle of intuition. That's what she symbolizes. Okay? And then we move on to, and I'm going to kind of talk about the Emperor and Empress together, but they do kind of represent 2 different things. Okay? Now, to me, the Empress is all about love, right? And unconditional love. It's a mother card to me. Now, in Crowley's case, this isn't the mother. She's the wife. So she's just there together with this. Again, in a divine sense. So this isn't actually your mother and father. It could represent that in the reading, but we're not even talking about that right now. This is masculine and feminine energies. But if the feminine, what would the feminine be to you? Who is the feminine to you? The energy within yourself that's feminine, what does it do? In my case, it's love, nurturement, right? Nurturing something, birthing your ideas, stuff like that, right? So in this instance, you have to explore all the facets of love in your life. That could be all types of relationships. What you value and what you value in life in terms of relationships. This could be friendships, this could be your lovers, this could be siblings, paternal, right? Parents. All facets of love. You have to kind of learn what you value in those types of relationships. But then the Emperor, he's all about control, right? So his is, once you've learned how to love, okay, then you have to take responsibility for how you act with these people in certain situations, right? So he's all about taking responsibility. Now, once you've done all of this, okay, gathered your tools, whatnot, you've built your intuition, learning to trust yourself, okay, that's big for this card for me. Because she tends to get, imbalanced, if you like. And then the Empress card, you learn what you value in a relationship, in all the relationships, setting boundaries, right? the setting boundaries and having control over your relationships, not in a negative way. I mean in a positive way. The boundaries you set that benefit and serve you. That's what the Emperor is for, and that's kind of why they're together. Then we move to the Heirophant. Now the Heirophant to me has always been a troublesome card because I kind of felt like he was the priest. But that's really, I've actually been studying with the Hierophant archetype a lot lately, and I feel like it's more like a spiritual mentor, a spiritual teacher, right? Someone who is guiding you spiritually and you actually value them. You've learned to value that relationship, and then you've set the boundaries, but then you're going to encounter someone, because after all this, you realize you want to grow spiritually. You're like, okay, I've learned all of this, but I want to grow spiritually. And that's the initial thought, right? Your initial thought is, I need to grow spiritually. I want to get closer to the divine. You go and seek out this spiritual mentor, whoever it may be to you. It could be someone you watch on YouTube. It could be someone that you've reached out to say, look, I really resonate with your energy. Could you teach me how to do this, this, and this, right? Or whatever. They could just be someone that holds space for you. I know a lot of people on Instagram and YouTube that do that for people, that send healing energy out. That could be all it is. And that's all that represents in this journey. Then we get to the Lovers. Now you would say, let's figure out how we value it. But with the Lovers card, there's separation with that, okay? So it's almost like knowing that we have both light and dark. The mentor kind of helps us with that. Once we get to that space of knowing we want to be more spiritually versed in whatever path you're on, we learn that we're both light and dark. And we have to choose a path. And that choice isn't always easy. And that's what the Lover card represents. Choosing which wolf to feed, if you know that tale. And then finally, in this particular line of the Fool's Journey, we get to the Chariot card. Now, what we have to do is, once we get to the end of this, we're learning all about the spiritual path. Once let's say we've chosen which wolf to feed, we have to actually go down that path. Whatever path we choose in this card, we have to actually take the road, so to speak. That's all that represents. All 7 of these cards. Moving right along. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to set these aside. We're going to pull out the next 7 cards. Okay, here's the next set. They're up here. Just imagine that the other 7 are up here. Now the Fool, he's not starting over. Okay, the whole major arcana is the journey of life. So, just imagine he's still on this journey, right? Now we come to the Justice card. I love that Crowley states this as adjustment, because in this position in the Fool's Journey, it's all about balancing what you just encountered in the Chariot card. You're going on your path, right? And you've chosen the path, and then you actually drive on the path. You're on that path. But then you have to learn to balance all that's on that path. How to bob and weave. And what does that take? It takes adjustment. It takes free flow. It takes being free with yourself, not stagnant, like I've got to drive at 50 miles an hour, like the movie Speed, right? You have to be there has to be an adjustment period, because there's going to be obstacles and things on that path that you're going to have to bob and weave out of the way. And you have to be prepared for that, and that's what this card is all about. Now we come to the Hermit card. The Hermit card is all about solitude to me, and I love this particular rendition of the Hermit card because, well, there's so much in this there's so much in this, but I love how this particular light shard comes from source, and then there's light that's coming from the lantern. But for this particular Hermit card, it's about finding the peace within. Okay, you're adjusting. right? But you can't just adjust all the time. You're going to have to learn how to go within and how to learn how to be by yourself. Be one with yourself and know yourself. Interview yourself. I have a whole video up on that for, questions to ask yourself and journal about if you are interested. But it's important once you've learned the path, you chose the path, or you chose the path, and then you've gone on the path, and then you're adjusting once you're on the path and you're bobbing and weaving. You have to learn that life isn't all go, go, go. There's points in your life that you have to go within. Otherwise, you're just gonna be go, 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 and then that turns that into be a burnout. Heavily. Anyway, so you're exploring solitude to heal and grow. You're just exploring that in this card. Then we move to the wheel. The wheel is doing this. And I love how Crowley, really Harris, puts these things like they are made of the wheel. Like, I imagine this, a beautiful wooden wheel, and these things are carved on it. And you imagine that each one has its own weight, right? So the wheel is just kind of, and it's moving like that in life. Once we've done these two, and we get to the wheel, it's all about staying centered, right? It's all about staying centered. And when you, not all the time, okay, it's not going to happen that way, but learning how to center yourself from the solitude while still knowing that life is going to be ever changing. No matter what happens in your life, it's still going to continue. Life still goes on. And that's a powerful lesson to learn. Okay? Because grief, sometimes you want to stop the wheel, you want to stop time, you want to turn back, right? There's a powerful thing to learn on the path of life. And some of us learn it way too early, some of us don't learn it at all, but stuck in denial, right? But learning the lesson is important on the journey of life as a whole. And then we get to the Lust card, which for this particular deck is the Strength card, but it has nothing to do with what the Strength card means in the normal tarot deck. But for me, this is about, once you've done this, okay, these are all sort of kind of hard lessons. Learning to adjust, learning to go within, and then learning that life is still going to go, whether you want it to or not. These are kind of harsh, right? Not as harsh as the next set of stuff, but they're still pretty harsh, especially if you've still got some of this childlike, naivete. But then with lust, you're learning all about what's going to keep you passionate, right? Actually making goals for your dreams, setting goals that's going to take you to your dream, okay? Or even figuring out what you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be as big as a dream career or a dream house. It could just be little things that you're passionate about that keep you on the path, that keep you, I don't want to say keeps you in a state of bliss, because life doesn't work that way. But I do like the fact that this being lust, and I love that Harris says that it could just be a piece of chocolate that soothes you, right? That's all this card represents. Find that in you from this that you're passionate about, and that keeps you going too. Then we get to the Hangman. Now, this to me is all about self-sacrifice, and I love how he put the nails in his hand and in his foot. I think he was being tongue-in-cheek with Christianity a little bit here, but I don't want to say it like that. I don't want to actually say that, because I don't know that for sure. That's just my opinion when I look at this particular card. However, I feel like when you self-sacrifice, when you gain that new perspective, look at all that light coming and pouring into the waters. Now, what does waters mean to symbolize? The subconscious, right? He's pouring all of that new stuff into his unconscious, or his subconscious even. And when he does that, it's adding to that. It's adding to all those collective unconscious images. And he can't do that unless he's done these. And it's very powerful to do that, learning when it's necessary to self-sacrifice. And that's a hard lesson as well. Then we get to death. I love this death card. Oh my goodness. But anyway, it's all about transformation, right? I have a whole video coming up on this particular card because there's so much that Crowley doesn't even say. It's not in any book, but there's some things in this card that I have seen in very, very old books of symbols, like old books from the 1800s, that I'd like to talk about. So there's a whole video up on this one card alone coming up, but this is all about transformation, okay? There's way more to it than just that word, but let's just condense it for a second. What are we transforming? Once we've gained that perspective and we've learned how to self-sacrifice, we have to do what? We have to know that transformation will happen. It could be in your darkest time. It could be in your happiest time. Something will happen that will change you. And because you've learned all these lessons, you're open. You're open and ready for it and honest with yourself when it happens. And that's a very important lesson to learn. Learning to let go. The stuff that he's pouring in here, the stuff in here that's not serving you, you need to let it go. And that's going to change you and transform you. That's what this card represents. Then we get to the last card in this setup, and it's the art card, which in traditional decks would be Temperance. Now, this is an integration. You can see an alchemical integration of what? Well, all that you've learned. And that's including the other 7 cards as well. This is like the middle. The whole thing. And it's taking all that you've learned on this side and you're open on the other side for all that you're going to learn. And it's important to be receptive of all that. Receptive of the integration. To, again, become more balanced. It's basically, we're starting all the way over. When we do this, and we are balanced completely, right? It's kind of like we're starting all the way over. But we're not. We're going to continue. So, let's continue. Now we're going to get to the last set of cards, okay? These are some harsh lessons as well, people. But I love the Fool's Journey so much and what it teaches. And it's almost like fortune telling, almost, because for those of us on the spiritual path, we're all on the path of life anyway. But when you really think about being the fool and being on this journey and what you haven't encountered yet or what you think you haven't encountered yet can be so profound of a thought. It's just so eye-opening. Okay. Here we come to the last setup. Now, here's the Devil card. As phallic and sexual alchemist as this looks, this is really the core meaning of the Devil card in Crowley's deck is the same as it all. These are the vices. Now, in the Fool's Journey, it means all the temptations and vices that you will encounter in your life. Okay? Remember back to that very first time you were ever tempted by something. You could be 8 years old, right? So you've already done all the rest of it, right? Let's just say. So this, to me, means all the temptations and vices of life that can still chain you down, that has the ability to chain you down. And you just have to recognize what they are. And it can be so powerful of a thought because you want to stay in the chains. You want to stay in the temptation mindset. And it's not healthy, right? And it's keeping us from the enlightenment. Because when it chains us, we can't keep going. We can't get here. And it's learning to be birthed, not to stay here. If you get my drift. So, then we move to the Tower card. Isn't this Tower card fabulous? Anyway, let's see. To me, here's the chains, right? Vices and temptations. This is destroying them. Think about when you get out of the chains, how free you're going to feel, but then how nauseous, and I've been here, how nauseous and how fetal position-esque you feel. As free and as relieved as you feel to get out of the chains, there's still a huge part of you that wants to stay in the tower, that wants to stay here and not be birthed. But once you're birthed right here in this mouth of fire, okay, you're going to be a new person. And going through this and living in this chains for however long is going to change you in a more profound way than death did. Because this is life experience now. Right? Not just a change from innocent to you saw something on the news that chipped away at the innocence, right? That's kind of like the death card to me. Letting go of things that aren't serving you in that type of a sense. But then the Tower is that moment where after you've been chained, the life experience of it it's like the higher you are, the harder you fall type of a sense with the Tower card. That's what it means to me. Okay, let's move on, because I can talk about the Tower card all day. The Star card. Now, once this happens, you need something to keep going, or else you'll just stay in the fetal position, right? But when you're in the fetal position, you need that kernel of hope, right, to keep going. Whatever it is to you, everyone has one, or several. A kernel of hope that will put you standing again. And that's what the Star card represents to me. It'll shine in your Tower moment. And you have to learn to value that. Whatever it is in your life that got you out of that Tower moment. It could be a person, it could be a thing, it could be an act that you do, like a hobby. I don't know, whatever it is, okay? It could be a total stranger. It could be the nurse in the hospital, or whoever. But whatever it is, that is about valuing it. It's about thanking the universe for giving it to you. It could be found within yourself. Then we get to the Moon card, okay? Now, the Moon card to me is all about subconscious, stuff like that, right? Wading down in the abyss, kind of like the Hanged Man card a little bit. But this is more powerful to me. To me, this is once you've had the hope and you've rekindled your will to live, okay? That lust for life aspect, you begin to let go in a more sublime way. You begin to let go in this hope has shown me that I'm way more than whatever I've gone through. It doesn't define me. What all I've gone through isn't who I am. I'm way more than that. I'm way more divine than that. So this is a let go in a powerful way. In a I know myself way. And this can be a harsh lesson too. Because you kind of want to stay back here, right? Because no one wants to realize that they're more divine and more powerful than they are. Right? Because then that feels like a power that we have within us that we don't want to grasp. We don't want to wield the lightning bolt. So this can be a harsh lesson. But once we wield the lightning bolt of the power that is us, the divinity that is us, we get to the Sun card. These happy people dancing up on a hill. Okay? The light, the first light of spirit. That's what this is. You're awakened with glee, and you've figured out what your purpose is. Your purpose. That's so profound, isn't it? This is the light of spirit showing you your purpose. And then what does that do once you figure that out? Once you figure out what your purpose is and you're shown the path, you're shown the light, what happens? You start a new chapter, right? You become almost like a different person, almost like a new person. That's why this card is called the Aeon card. Because that's a long period of time. That's what that word means. An indefinite amount of time. Because you're beyond that. Your new chapter is beyond time, beyond space. And then what happens once you realize that? You're the entire universe. You are the entire universe within yourself. To me, this is like the organ donor card. When you finally realize what you've been through and how divine you are, and you figure out a way to teach that to others in the best way you can, the best way no one else can. Passing down that knowledge because you are the universe. So you've made it up to the universe, and now you're going to send all that knowledge back down to plant it here for someone else to go on their journey. And that's what I love about the Fool's Journey. So, I hope that this was informative, and I hope it was fun. I do Thoth videos every other Thursday. So come back in a couple of weeks for another Thoth video, and we'll touch on some more. So much love, everybody.